Well, Morgan Cox, welcome to the NatCon Australia podcast.
Hey, thanks for the call.
Yeah, no worries. Hey, for those who don't know, you shot to prominence a couple of weeks before the Australian election campaign when you were featured on the Q&A program. This is the chats show of the Australian national broadcaster. And you asked a very poignant question of the guests regarding what they were going to do about rental affordability in Australia. For those who can't remember it or don't hear it, what was the question and what were you trying to get them to respond to?
Well, I just briefly went over my personal circumstances at the time. I have a baby, and I'd received a almost $10,000 rent increase, um, and obviously that was unmanageable. I hadn't had a great financial year that same year, so I was already struggling, and that was just too much. So having seen the Q&A thing pop up, I sent them a bunch of questions and, they just let me, yeah, say my circumstances and I just asked them, "Are we gonna keep going until every working Australian is homeless?" Because that's the way it seems to be going. It's just getting worse and worse, and for all their words and promises, nothing's getting done.
And it was, I thought, very genuine and heartfelt. And I thought actually it would neatly frame the election. Okay, this is an obvious, human here with real financial difficulty and the like. What did you think of the response from the panelists, and what did you think of the response overall of the way it was handled in the federal election?
Well, I gotta say, I wasn't, expecting, too much. I was hoping, but, yeah, I guess I got the sort of response that I expected. Typical politician stuff, I guess. It's complicated. I did follow up, though. I feel like I sort of nailed him there when I said, "Look, you did it before. You're the government."
Mm.
So I don't know how, and, maybe that's why it went viral. I guess, I think I made a simple logical point that everyone could see, that, if we're bringing in millions of people and we don't have millions of homes, of course, house prices are gonna go up, rent's gonna go up, and people are gonna be homeless, and it's just maths. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was effective also because you genuinely seemed like a decent dude. It wasn't. It didn't appear staged at all. You feel like you're asking a genuine, heartfelt question of the housing minister. I think Michael Butler was on stage there, and he gave you a bit of a very woolly type of response. Sort of tried to feel your pain, but then said there wasn't all that much he could do about it. In essence, right?
Yeah, and that was kind of painful to listen to. Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm in any way a special or,
Mm,
I'm just a regular
mm,
working man taking care of my family. I'm sure like many millions of others.
mm.
Um, and it was heartfelt because it literally, it was, my family was facing homelessness. So, it really was heartfelt. And, I think people picked it up um, and to be honest, there's many people way worse than me. Many people who, my landlord, by the way, has been very generous and given me a lower rent increase that I can manage. Um, but many people are already on the street. Many people have been hit really hard. People have kids, and they've been thrown out. Elderly people, disabled people. Um, I heard there's something like 300,000 homeless at the moment, and something like 3 million people on the verge of homelessness. I think the poverty rate's like 3.5 million. So I guess all of them and a bit more. That's half the rentals in Australia. There's apparently 7 million rentals, so that means 50% of people who are renting are in poverty. That's staggering for the second richest country in the world. So that just blows my mind.
It's unacceptable. I mean, tell me a bit more about your background, and only share so much as you want to share. But has your family been in Australia a long time? Have you always been in and around Sydney?
Yep. I guess my parents, my grandparents, they're all from Australia. My father's side, I think, is from Queensland. My mother's side has been in New South Wales as long as I'm as far back as we have records for.
Mm,
I think, yeah, my family's been in the country for a long, long time.
mm.
Um, I don't really see that that makes much difference, though. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, even the foreign students, as so many other people, even the immigrants themselves are suffering in the same way. Unless you
No,
come over here with bags of money, you're going to be in the same boat.
I hear you. I wasn't sort of implying anything about that, except that do they does your family tell you that when they were your age, it was genuinely easier to get on the housing ladder? Can you kind of benchmark yourself against previous generations and as a way of objectively, you know, s assessing how difficult it is compared to past times?
Yeah, my parents got a house in, I think, the early 2000s or something, just a single income and a regular labor job, just a laboring job.
In
Wasn't
Sydney
high
or
paying or anything in
in
Sydney,
Greater
in Western
yeah, right.
Sydney.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and, you know, yeah, it's just staggering. It's staggering what's happened because now it seems like you need sort of 3 or more incomes. You got a lot of people working 2 jobs, and it seems virtually impossible. I'm hearing a lot that singles, people that have separated or don't have a partner just have no chance whatsoever. They're just completely, they're living with parents or couch surfing or homeless, because it just seems like the minimum now is sort of 3 jobs.
How old are you? At the moment, Morgan, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm 42.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and with 3 kids, and you are the sole breadwinner, is that right? In the house, and you have your own tech business, IT business is from what I understand, in previous interviews?
Yeah, that's right, sort of. Yeah, I work in the construction industry, I guess, but yeah, in data networking, hi-fi equipment, stuff like that, home automation.
Mm,
Um, yeah, so I guess so my partner has a part-time job, but with a one-year-old baby, obviously, she doesn't work
yeah,
very much. So, she's worked more in the past, but hasn't been working at all
mm,
lately. And then, yeah, so I'm working my main job, and I've recently been informed that my second job is not a job but a hobby. But uh, yeah, I fix and repair electronics and old toys and things
okay,
and sell them.
mm.
So yeah, I try to make a little bit of extra money there. Every bit makes every bit of difference, as you can imagine, because we're pretty close to not being able to afford to live. And
And
it's not
again,
like I can go anywhere else. There's no cheaper.
no, and amongst your I'm just trying to give people a sense of it all who may not be aware, or they really should be aware, both in Australia and elsewhere. Among your friends and schoolmates, do you have any sense of, their accommodation status? Do many people own, or are many people also just struggling to even afford to rent?
I think it's a mix. I guess I don't have that much contact with schoolmates,
Mm,
but people around my age seems to be a bit of a mix. If they've had the fortune of parents that were able to help them,
mm,
I'd say they've got a house, or if they managed to, if they had 2 incomes from early on and they held back to have kids, then maybe if they bought a house sort of 20 years ago, 15 years ago, then they're doing all right. Those people, such as myself, that have been through some kind of difficulty, um, they're in sort of the same boat as me, struggling,
mm.
struggling to make ends meet, and just really fighting to stay above water.
So, what was the political response during the federal election campaign? Did the Liberal Party, and Peter Dutton, who was trying to be prime minister, did they reach out to you and sort of try and um, potentially use you as an example of what the case for change, or was there none of that?
No, no, there was none of that. I tried to reach out to, Peter Dutton, also Albo.
Mm.
We had a sort of a second degree connection with Dutton, but I just couldn't get past his, what do you call them, handlers or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, Albo, I was parked in front of his house, and I know he was on the Central Coast, so he wasn't far away. He could have come down and had a chat, and I really would have loved to, I'll talk to anyone. I'm not
Mm.
political. This is not a political issue. This is a humanity issue. This is a people are suffering. Um, so yeah, I would have loved to talk to Albo or really anyone. I tried to get hold of the local member, but he didn't return my calls. I understand they're busy, but it does seem important to me. I feel like it's kind of an important issue for the election, so I was surprised that no one really,
Yeah, I mean,
reached out.
you were conducting a protest outside the Prime Minister's house in the where was it? Coco where was his house located?
Copacabana,
Is that far from you, or
Copacabana.
is that
It's not too far, about half an hour from where I live. It's,
yeah, right. And
yeah.
so you're doing that to draw attention to the issue, and you got a little bit of press because of that. I mean, picked up by Sky and some of the other channels. Did the ABC come back
Oh,
and interview you?
uh, hey, the ABC were harassing the neighbours. The
Mm,
ABC were really, yeah, they literally refused to talk to me. They were there. They took photos. They were flying drones over the neighbours, and the neighbours were coming because I promised the neighbours that I wouldn't let the press disturb them.
mm,
So yeah, the ABC was super duper rude. Um, So I got a current affair. I think that's pretty big. Newsmax, Six News,
mm.
yeah, Sky News. Yeah, there was quite a lot of media interest. Lots of articles. I feel like I got the message out there, and I wasn't expecting too much. I was hoping, but I wasn't expecting too much from the Prime Minister himself. Although, it would have been a great opportunity to sort of bring some of the politicians, even if it was Dutton or whatever, to bring some of them down to earth and sort of, yeah, help them to understand what it's like for the Aussie battlers that, Albo claims he was one.
Mm.
But you know what? I mean, good luck getting housing commission now. Housing commission is an extreme luxury that very, very few people get.
Is that
Um,
right?
so, you know, I'm not sure that he's, as much of a battler as he thinks he is. So,
Mm.
he's had some pretty amazing privilege.
Well, it's amazing now. I mean, he's been, receiving as far as I know, he's never worked in the private sector in his life, but he's bought a $4.3 million place, and that's, in addition to the other properties he owns. I'm just curious about the ABC. I'm just because they did invite you on Q&A, but then they didn't wanna have much to do with you afterwards, right?
That's right, yeah. I contacted them after the Q&A thing went viral and asked if they wanted to talk about it, and also for the protest at Albo's house, but, yeah, no, they didn't wanna have anything to do with it. I may have caught them off guard a bit there. I feel like I might have, attacked their deity by accident or something. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's ironic because
they felt the way.
I think your question during that Q&A episode probably boosted their ratings. I mean, no one their ratings of
Oh,
Q&A had fallen
millions.
off a cliff, and yet it was an iconic moment, which was, relayed throughout the other stations as well, so people did rewatch it or did tune into it in a way they wouldn't have done otherwise.
Yeah, it was millions and millions. Just one of the videos on X, I think, had, 1.2 million or something
Yeah.
views, and there was dozens of copies, and there was articles, and yeah, it was everywhere. Absolutely.
Why do
It
you think
certainly would
they
have drawn a lot of attention.
Why do you think that is? Because ostensibly, at least, the ABC has left-leaning, attitudes, and it should be in favor of the underdog or the people who are struggling. Um, and why have both political parties? Why did they shun you? Because I would have thought that they could have, successfully kind of used you as an example for why their particular policies are required at this time if they were going to do it effectively.
Yeah, well, I felt like it would have been a good opportunity for either or yeah, any of them to come and have a chat and to seem like they cared.
Mm.
It's funny that they didn't even, usually it seems like they pay lip service a lot, but they don't really follow through on anything. But they didn't even want to talk to me. Um, I'm not sure why it was. I'm politically agnostic. I'm not left or right. I just care. Even though now I'm not immediately facing homelessness, I care deeply that literally millions of people are, and I think
Mm.
that's why it sort of got so much attention. Um, I yeah, I guess it's just it's a I don't know. Maybe it was a maybe they didn't want to be seen to not be able to do something. Maybe they feel like they couldn't do something because they are sort of trapped in their bubble. They've got their advisors in their ears, I guess. They've got their lobby groups pushing them this way and that. And maybe they feel like it's a political impossibility to actually do something about it. Maybe it
Mm.
was that. It did seem like the Liberal Party sort of gave up towards the end. Like I feel like they
Mm.
could have absolutely hit a home run, and they just sort of backtracked on all their core values. And I don't know a lot about the Liberal Party, but I heard that they started with the intention of sort of being for the working class people,
Well,
I guess the downtrodden. And
they're nothing if not in favor of ensuring that Australia maintains a prosperous middle class, and getting people
yeah,
from the working class into the middle class, I think is their sort of core ethos. Yeah, one of the remedies to this housing crisis you're strongly behind, and frankly, I'm strongly behind as well, is cutting immigration dramatically, right? That seems to be the most obvious lever that government can pull. But they're
and there's
real.
examples.
Both sides are really only tweaking the edges, really, right? They're like the cuts that they proposed were nothing drastic.
No, and what's more, they're not like a target is not anything meaningful. A target like Albo's target to build 100,000 homes or whatever. Was it like 8 houses or something that they built?
That was that
It's just so vague and meaningless. If you're going to do something, just do it. And that's why I went for immigration, because they did it during the pandemic. They closed the borders, so they have the ability to
mm,
decide who comes into the country. We know that. And we also know from Canada, Canada cut its immigration dramatically, and immediately people started being lifted out of poverty. Homes became available, our average rents came down. It made a massive difference. Homeless people were homed. It made a massive difference
mm,
immediately. So it seems like a no-brainer to me.
mm.
And I should add, I think I heard that the Liberal Party actually, the Labor Party wanted foreign students or something last year. The Liberal Party blocked it, and that's pretty staggering to me.
Nuance related to that debate about how they should have implemented student cuts, but it simply on both sides wasn't dramatic enough. That the universities were squealing. There were all these claims about how it would wreck the economy, all these flow-on effects. I mean, what do you make of that argument? Immigration does, in some sense, increase GDP, even though it has reduced, per capita GDP and has, flow-on effects. What do you say to those guys that look, it's the best means on offer we have for increasing economic growth in Australia?
Well, GDP in itself is a pretty meaningless figure.
Mm,
GDP per capita seems to make a bigger to be a more useful number, because GDP, you could have virtually everyone completely poor, homeless, and still have it look like the economy is going well, which is what we have now. Not that
mm,
everyone is, but that many people are. So GDP per capita seems like a better measure, but even that, I think you need to be a bit more nuanced. I think it's a pretty meaningless figure, especially since I think that they change the figures around and weightings and all of those numbers that they give us. They're moving them around all the time, um, and it's pretty staggering.
Well, they count
Uh, I,
famously count student international student rents as exports, and there's so many ways they can play around with the figures to work out, manage
yeah,
massage
I saw
GDP.
some. That's right. I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. It's, remittance into Australia and remittance out of Australia has a huge, enormous deficit. We're actually exporting an absolute ton of money
Mhm.
overseas. So those students might not be bringing in quite as much as they think they are. And sure, the universities are getting paid, but there might be a net negative for everyone else. Um, and I'm not against foreign students either, but I feel like everything, the government should just be managing it. And you know what? If the universities are making millions and millions of dollars off these foreign students, why aren't they supplying housing for them? If 200,000 foreign students came in February, that's a ton of money. Where is the accommodation that those universities built for them? And what's more, they're going to need medical services as well. Whether they're paid for or using Medicare, I'm not sure. But whatever the case, they need doctors, they need roads, they need phones, internet, all the services, electrical, water, sewerage, all of that stuff. So it's just an enormous cost on the entire system,
Mhm.
and I feel like the government should be managing that, not just
Yeah,
ignoring it.
it's a classic case of they socialize the liabilities but privatize the profits. So everyone else has to
Yes,
pick up the tab for all these additional costs that aren't factored in their particular balance sheet. Yeah.
yeah, it's wrong, isn't it? It just it seems evil to me that literally old ladies are living in cars and you know people with families with kids. Um, I spoke to uh, um, a couple of people, and I've heard. I spoke to Senator Malcolm Roberts, and he told me that he's been speaking to people in Queensland who have lost their children, who've been forced onto the street, working families, been forced onto the streets, and then had child services come and take their children. Um, the stuff, it's just it's abhorrent. It's evil. These are working people. They're not drug dealers or common criminals. They're not. These are just normal families struggling to make ends meet. Um, that they should be forced onto the street and then have their children taken away. Just it breaks my heart.
Yeah. It's
Stuff gives me
very
nightmares.
very interesting because your example was one where, you're a privately employed, guy with 3 kids and you were struggling, and there must be a whole lot of other cases of much more messy people with messy circumstances that simply are not reported, and the press do not cover and do not wanna cover. I mean, they apart from the initial, moment of fame on Q&A, they didn't wanna cover you anymore, either, the ABC press anyway, did they?
No, not the ABC, no. But I feel like there might be sort of a personality cult thing going on, like they felt like I attacked their leader or something, and and I wasn't really intending to attack anyone. I'm just trying to bring attention, and
Yeah.
if they feel bad about this, maybe they should because a lot of people are really hurting.
Mm.
Maybe feeling bad is what we need. That's what I feel bad, and that's why I'm doing it. Um,
Mm.
but, yeah, I feel like some people feel like I attacked them. I got called a lot of names. People made slanderous videos associating me with people I've never even met. Um, saying that my partner is an immigrant, by the way, so I'm obviously not against immigration.
Mm.
Um, but saying that I hate non-white people and just garbage, absolute garbage. And I was just surprised. The vast majority of people were overwhelmingly supportive, but I was just surprised at some of the vitriol I got from just a handful of just really angry people. I'm just not sure why. I don't know what I did to upset them.
Well, it
Um,
was leading up to an election campaign, and I think people recognized as a very powerful cut through message that you were delivering, which would harm the government. And so they probably went into tribal mode. That's my explanation for it.
Mhm.
During that, if it hadn't been then, well, some people will always give you flack, but if it hadn't been for that particular time, maybe there would have been a little less sort of vitriol directed your way. But who knows? It all depends. Where do you think things are going to end up in 10 years' time, Morgan? How
I
do you
don't think
see?
it's not gonna last 10 years. I can't see there's 3.5 million people in poverty now, right? They're the I saw some government uh, in news that they were gonna raise the foreign students um, uh, whatever the fee is for by $2,000, and they were going to raise $1 billion, which means they're anticipating at least another 500,000 foreign students on top of the 1.8 million anticipated permanent residents, and that's without all the others. So it seems like they're anticipating literally bringing in more than 1 million people a year for this next term. We've got 3.5 million people in poverty now. I We're building less homes, less every year. More and more builders are going out of business. So we're building less homes, not more. So I can't see any way but that there will be millions of people forced onto the street. They're forced into poverty. People that are in poverty aren't spending. They're going to the hospital more. They're putting enormous strain on public services. People who are living in poverty aren't, they're not contributing. They're not, what are they talking about? They're talking about um, productivity, efficiency, or something like that. But that, if you're living in a tent, you're not starting a business, you're not going to work, you're not doing anything productive, and household values might go up. So, like you said, with the GDP, maybe it looks like the economy is doing great, but those houses aren't producing anything. They're just sitting there. They're just steel and bricks,
Mm,
or wooden bricks. Um, so they're not really producing anything. So I think that with the extra strain on the system, with millions of people being pushed into poverty, spending's going to go down. I think we're going to be facing uh, at least a pretty severe recession, if not something worse. I'd say probably within a year. I'm not saying this as some kind of prophet. I'm not guessing. I'm sort of the canary in the coal mine. It's literally happening to me and happening to the people around me.
mm,
So when I say this, I'm not just I'm using some numbers, but I can see it's already happening. I can see all the people around me who are already on the very brink of not being able to afford the rent. And I know that if you bring in even another 1 million people, um, there's nowhere for them to live. So it's inevitable what's going to happen unless the government makes dramatic change, sort of, I guess, immediately or very, very soon.
mm.
10 years, I can't even imagine. I think if they just kept going like this for 10 years, we'd be a third world country. We'd be Venezuela or something. Maybe they could print money, but that has its own problems. Um, yeah, I'd see us turning into a third world country if they keep going like this.
There will be increasing radicalization too. I mean, there are green influencers, a famous one, I think Holly Unmuted got a bit of notoriety during the campaign, and but she makes, there's a lot of stuff I disagree with, but the point that they keep harping on about, that the median, what is it, ever it is, basically people can't afford rent in Greater Sydney on an average income. It's just impossible. That's true, more or less true, So, um, and then you have on the right people like Tucker Carlson who say, if your system's not producing a giving people, 23 and 24-year-olds, let alone, people in later life, a reasonable shot of being able to get on the housing ladder and form a family, burn the system down. That's not how it should work. We need a better system. And I just feel like on both the major political parties that there's an attitude which hasn't recognized the real danger, because it's not as though you can keep doing what you're doing and building up these terrible consequences and not suffer some sort of serious political blowback, right? I mean, where have you had friends of yours? I mean, you conducted your protest outside the Prime Minister's holiday house. Are you looking for other ways to get politically engaged, or where else are you looking?
Yeah, I am. I'm still working through some things. The first thing I'm trying to do is I've built a website, costoflivingcasualties.com.au, and all that is it's just collecting people's stories, and I'd like to put them forward once I have a big number of them. I'd like to put them forward to politicians because not many people know about that yet. I haven't really got it out there, but um, once I do, even the handful of stories I have, I've got a couple of hundred stories or something. Um, the stuff will give you nightmares. If someone has a soul and they read these stories, it's going to make them cry. It's
Mm.
just devastating. Um, and I feel like if I could get enough of those together, um, and I could get them into the hands of politicians, I can now. I've made some contacts, you know, so I could get them into hands of politicians, and I'd really like to just get that stuff out there, and maybe, if these people care at all, um, I feel like that could make a difference. And like I said, I don't care if it's the Labor Party, the Liberal Party, even the Greens. I think the Greens maybe have some good intentions, but maybe they don't know much about economics or something. I mean, yeah, just like their ideas about rent caps and things. It seems like a nice idea, but we've seen that before in other countries. What that's led to is is real estates and landlords just kicking people out, which makes it worse.
Yeah.
So we really need to address some of the root causes. And by the way, immigration is not the root cause. It's one of the main things, and it is the thing that can most quickly ease the pain. I guess the root cause would be decades and decades of bad government policy, um, propping up the demand side. Um, and that's yeah, it's going to take a long time to undo that. So I'm going with immigration because we can do that quickly.
Mm. Do you aspire to own your own place one day?
Well, I imagine everyone does.
Mm,
I don't like the idea of my landlord can kick me out. And, maybe they want to retire. Maybe they can't afford the rent where they are if they're renting. Um, maybe they can't afford the taxes that they're being forced to pay now, and they want to move in. Maybe uh, it's a two-bedroom apartment. They could easily rent this out to six foreign students or even six local students,
mm,
and I couldn't possibly compete with them for the rent they could pay. Um, yeah, there's so many things, and it's just hanging over my head constantly that I could get kicked out. I can't hang pictures on the walls. I can't. I've got to. If it's my house and my son spills some paint on the carpet, I can fix it up. But if it's a rental, and my 1-year-old does something, then I'm up for replacing the whole carpet in the whole house, or get kicked out, or both.
mm,
It's pretty scary. I guess the main thing with owning your house is that security. And um, with security comes sort of a sense of, if your mortgage repayment is this every week and you're not going to get kicked out, and you don't have to, worry so much about that stuff, then that's when you can sort of invest in your business, and you can do more productive things. Maybe
mm,
if you've got a bit extra money, you could invest it in the stock market or stuff like that. Whereas if you're renting, you've just got to, apart from the fact that there's always that fear hanging over your head, you've got to sort of, well, if you've got any brains, you've got a budget. You've got to put that money aside because you just never know what's going to
mm.
happen. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, definitely aspire to live in a home that I own.
Now that the federal election's over, are you gonna make additional attempts at, you know, contacting or writing to the federal housing minister and other ministers regarding immigration? I mean, the UK, under a Labor government, has at least changed the rhetoric significantly on immigration, so it is possible that they will they will change their tune a bit and implement changes where, um, so especially when, people like yourself can highlight it in a very effective way. But what do you think? Are you optimistic in that respect or not?
Well, like I said, with these stories, I feel like if I can get them across, if
Mm,
because my story is just one of probably
mm,
millions and millions. If I can get these across, I feel like that would make a difference. I mean, I don't know these people personally. Maybe they really are soulless monsters that just don't care at all.
mm.
But
I don't think so. Yeah.
surely some of them,
Mm,
surely. Um, so I'm a bit, I guess I'm a bit optimistic, but I know it's going to take some time, and I'm afraid we don't have much of that. Like I said, I feel like you notice we've got a lot of crime at the moment too, right? And the hospital system, what do you call it, ramping in hospitals,
mm.
enormous wait times. I needed to go to the doctor a week ago or something, and I just didn't bother because it was going. I knew that either I'm going to die or I'm going to get better before I see the doctor. So you know, um, that's how it is. And so all of these things are coming together, and it's like a snowball. It's exponential. So it's gonna be slow at first. It is slow now, but it's gonna get faster and faster and faster. And before you know it, we're gonna be staring down the barrel of just an absolute nightmare for millions of people. Um,
Well,
and
yeah.
it's terrifying.
I mean, I think as we're recording this, there's the Four Corners program on the Liberal Party in Australia, and I saw some of the shorts, and they're suggesting things like, quotas for women or moving to the sensible centre, whatever that means.
Oh,
Uh,
that's nonsense.
and the way you talk is completely different to the way that they're talking, where they're talking more about cosmetic things rather than practical solutions. How do you think the Liberal Party, not that you're pushing their barrow, but if they wanted to change their perception amongst renters and amongst people who are struggling in Australia, how should they do that?
Well, if I was gonna, first of all, it doesn't matter if it's the Liberal Party or the Labor Party or the Greens or anyone else.
Mm,
Um, I I would I would encourage them to first listen, just listen to the people. Like, I'm just one, but there's millions, literally millions of people, desperate to be heard. I don't know if you've seen some of the footage from around the election. People literally going up to
I did see
the
that.
prime minister and yelling at him. Um, we send letters, we make phone calls, but no one calls you back. Uh,
Mm,
it doesn't get through. So people are desperate to be heard. So the number one thing would be to just listen. Um, and again, that's what I'm sort of trying to do. I'm trying to bring attention to this and sort of make them listen.
mm,
Um, and I care about the environment. I'm not a hard line greenie or anything, but I don't I don't want the polar ice caps to melt. I don't want to see plastic everywhere in the ocean. I'm pretty sure everyone feels the same way.
yeah.
But uh, tell me, if you're going to be living in a tent next month, how much do you care about the weather in 100 years? Like, I I just don't care right now. I mean, it's just not even registering on my radar. So if you want me to care about that stuff, make sure that I feel secure in my home, and then we can talk about the weather in 100 years. We can talk about the plastic in the oceans and stuff. And I'm all for that stuff. I'm sure everyone is, or at least the vast majority.
Mm,
Um, the left wing, the right wing. I think it's all nonsense. I think most people agree on most things. It seems like common sense to me.
mm,
But like me, I'm sure that most people have the same sort of priorities, and the highest priority is probably making sure their family, their children, their parents, the people around them immediately have their own basic needs met. Um,
mm.
and so that's where I would start with anybody.
How has your, idea of Australia changed from when you were little? I mean, it used to be, the land of opportunity and land of the fair go. Has it fundamentally changed given during your adult life? How do you see it now?
Well, yeah. So I wouldn't say my ideas changed. I'd say Australia's changed a lot.
Mm,
Um, but I think that the same people were doing the same things then. It's just that it seems, um, I think it's sort of accumulated over the years,
mm,
and now it's getting to a point where it's really, really bad. Um, I remember thinking John Howard was a good prime minister, um, but I didn't understand, the taxes and the tax breaks and the demand side policies, and I didn't understand that stuff until my own family is facing homelessness.
mm.
Um, and I'm not saying even he is good or bad, but you can't tell how bad these policies are until the effects have accumulated over years. And now I feel like we've had many bad policies over decades on both sides of the aisle. Um, and it started to accumulate, and now we're at the very, very top of the cliff. It's all it's all coming together right now.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
it's like I can see no hope for my kids. I mean, can you imagine? I think I read an article that Brisbane's house prices are going to double or something in the next few years. And by my calculations, based on the average price and assuming the rent is something similar to the repayments, maybe $3,500 a week for rent. Can you imagine? There's a lot of people out there that could afford that, and
It's
and
insane.
you know
Yeah.
yeah, and what's more, jobs are being automated, and there seems to be less and less of those jobs that pay well.
Mm.
Um, I think we're really at some kind of a turning point or an inflection point, and from the accumulation of these things, and it's going to be an absolute disaster if we don't start rolling things back right now and taking practical steps.
I'm with you. I think that they should be moving heaven and earth and dispensing with the niceties to create a situation where it is realistic for, people with a job to be able to realistically not maybe not purchase the best house, but purchase a house when they're 24, 25. That used to be possible. That is no longer possible in our capital cities in Australia for all but the sort of, top 5% or everyone who plays their cards perfectly and has family assistance or comes from overseas who has financial backing that way. And that's not how Australia is meant to be run. That and
No,
it won't benefit anyone in the long term. So, mate, I really appreciate the chat. I think you're actually an incredibly effective spokesperson for this issue. And if people want to find out more about you and your work, I know you're working on the website, but what other ways can they get in touch with you?
um, I've got an X account. I've not really had social media before. I've got a Facebook account, unleavened cat, so like unleavened bread,
I'll
unleavened
drop it in
cat
the
on X.
drop it in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah. And my name, Morgan Cox, on Facebook. Again, not super active on there. My
When do,
next move's
when does the
probably going
when
to be
does the
something.
website when does the web that website you were talking about with the stories you're describing, when does that go live? Or is that live already?
Hey, it's live. It's live now. Yep, yep. I've only it's I haven't really been promoting it very hard. I needed if you know anyone, let me know. But I need a bit of help with that, in terms of the organizational structure and trying to get some donations so I can promote it. But yeah, that's going to be a thing that I'm going to try to promote in the coming period of time. And I'll my next move will probably be something similar to what I did at Albo's house because let's face it, they're not answering the phone. They're not replying to emails. So, you know, you're gonna have to embarrass someone. Um, gonna have to make a statement to be heard. So probably look out for something a bit unexpected there.
Okay. No, keep it legal, but keep it make it interesting, and
Of
they can and
course.
they'll be forced to cover it. Uh, Again, appreciate your time, Morgan. Great to chat, and look forward to hearing how things go in the future, mate.
Thanks very much.
Cheers, bye.